Thanks very much for coming back again. In this video what I'm going to be looking at are cranktop mills. Now we've had cranktop mills for a while. We've just at the point of doing this video got some new ones to replace some of the old chrome ones, although those might continue. We haven't quite decided yet, but anyway, we've got a couple of new sizes in chrome. We've got an 8-inch and we've got a 6-inch. The next thing I have to say is, I know the next thing someone's going to ask for is a 4-inch, and whoever wants a 4-inch, someone else will want a 5.5-inch. We can't do them all, it's as simple as that. So in the cranktop mill range, to go with the ones I'm going to show you in a moment, we've got, I think it's a 4-inch black, an 8-inch black, and we've now got a 6-inch chrome and an 8-inch chrome, as well as some other new sized kits as well. Are you confused? Well, join the club. I am as well. I have to say, it really does get enormously confusing the more stuff we get. What I'm going to show you to start with is what's in the kit, and you'll see, unlike where I normally am, I'm not at the lathe today. I'm going to stress everything I do you can do on a lathe. I just fancied a change, so I'm going to do it on a pillar drill. My pillar drill's pretty big, so I can drill some quite deep stuff. You might not have a pillar drill that big. You can do it by hand. The most important thing with any of this, and this is just the scrap of wood I'm using today, is that you must get the holes at the ends centered and flat. If you don't, and the shaft doesn't sit flat in the grinder, the two grinder plates don't sit level with each other. They sit at an angle. They don't grind properly. You'll get a fine grind on one side and a coarse grind on the other side, and it's quite likely that whilst trying to get a fine grind, what you'll actually do is break the burr. So being level is really quite important. Other than that, the measurements have to be around about right, but because they have adjuster knobs on the top, there's a little bit of play involved as well. So normally what I do is tell you how big the pieces of wood are I've got. I'm not going to do that today. This is to try and get you in the habit of, you must measure your kit and measure the piece of wood you've got yourself, because I'm not there to do that for you. Yes, we have guides to give you an idea, but they are guides. It's not gospel. Some people like to adapt things. Anyway, without further ado, let's have a look at the bits in the kit which are a little bit better than some of the previous ones we've had. Right, I'm not used to doing this and holding it, so bear with me. We have got our chrome crank top, which is a nicely chromed bit. You can see the shape of the handle there, hopefully. We have the shaft with the adjuster knob on the top. This is a stainless steel shaft, so a little bit better than the aluminium ones. And then all the other bits and pieces that we'll look at assembling as and when we've cut the holes in the block of wood that we're doing. Now what I'm going to do today on the pillar drill is basically I'm going to drill 3 holes. I'm going to drill 36mm, hang on, right, I'm going to drill 36mm in the top. That's for that bit there. This is the top to guide the cranktop handle. I'm going to drill 38mm in the bottom, 10mm deep, and that is to take the burr and all those bits. And then what I'm going to do is use what we do sell these. I call them the Beast. This is a 25mm HSS drill bit. It's about the biggest HSS drill bit you can get. It's got a reduced shank. This doesn't move. This, unlike some of the drills, this will not move or waver. Once it's in place, it's stuck there. It is quite a thing. And then we can look at assembling the kit. I might just get a plane off the edges, plane off the corners maybe, and have a, I don't know, nearly octagonal bit. I'm just going to play with it and see what happens, because that's the way I like to do things. So I've decided which is my top and which is my bottom. This is the 36mm Forstner bit, so this is the top of the kit. So I'm just going to drill down far enough to fit, where are you, there you are, to fit this bit, and that bit is a certain measurement I haven't taken, but I can just test it on the actual piece itself. Here we go. quite deep enough. There we go, that's better. If I hold that up there, hopefully you can see that. So that's the top. I'm now going to do the bottom with a 38mm bit. Now I've got the 38mm for the bottom. It's important to say, actually, I have marked the centre in this. The forcing bits are quite good because I've got little points so you can see what you're doing. And I need to drill down 10mm into here. So I've got my 36mm shallow hole at the top and my 38mm 10mm deep here. What I'm now going to do is use the beast and go right through the middle. Now if the one that goes right through the middle isn't exactly square, that's not the end of the world, to be perfectly honest. It's the top and the bottom that must be level with each other. What happens inside is basically it's just going to be full of either salt or pepper. You can see that this is quite a hefty bit of kit. I've got my block of wood, if I zoom out a little more because I don't think you can quite see that. Right, I've got my block of wood in a vise here because this is going to put some substantial pressure on the bit of wood. Now, just a word of warning, if you're doing this on the lathe it doesn't apply. If you've got a big pillar drill, right, you'll see if I start to drill with the vise over here, potentially what's going to happen is that vise is going to spin round, smack me in the stomach. So I always just make sure I've got the handle of the vise over there. What it's going to try and do is spin it that way and it'll hit this big pillar here, hopefully to save my life. Right, let's drill through the middle. So what I'm going to do now is a little test fit of the bottom burr. So I've got my spring retainer here, that's this odd little bit here. They're quite bendy and all that does is stop the spring falling into the mechanism. That goes in your hole in there like so, and then just check your burr in there. You might find it's quite tight. This is quite tight. If needs be, you can just use a little file, just file down the edge either side where the metal goes and you'll find it'll fit in easier. So I can pop that in there. I can pop the spring on the shaft. Ooh, there we go, hang on. Pop the spring on the shaft and that is how it will fit in like so, with the threads coming out the top end here. So really we're almost finished with the assembly, and we've test fitted it. We'll just check the top as well. I have made a slight error on mine, and instead of drilling 10mm I've actually gone 14, so it might well be that this knob doesn't tighten up quite as far as it should. There we go. So all we've really got to do now is screw in the top plate and the bottom plate with the screws, making sure we've cut or drilled the correct pilot holes first to do that. And just as an example, I've drilled all straight through in one. You'll see my hole at the top is completely wonky, but actually it won't make any difference because the shaft, this will hold the shaft central, so it really doesn't matter. It would look better probably if I drilled a bit that end and a bit the other end, and the wonky bit would have been in the middle, but being lazy as I am, I just did the whole lot in one go. Right, now on to the finishing of the kit and the final assembly. I'm just going to literally play with this wood and see what kind of shape I can make it with a plane, sander. Let's see what happens. I've got my plane. I'm just going to have a little play with taking the corners off. I don't normally do this, so apologies if I'm in the way. So the next step is to take our block of wood, turned wood, whichever it is. I've had this on the belt sander and just kind of shaped it roughly. I'm going to pop the outer burr into the little spring retainer, and when you do this, hopefully you can see this, the spring retainer's got little lips on it to stop it falling inside, and the other burr has got two little cutouts. These cutouts must not be over those little metal lips, otherwise you won't be able to drill your hole and pop them in. Right, okay, so I've got that in there like so. I'm then going to take my bottom plate and put that over, I'm hoping you can see this, all I've got is sun in my eyes, the little gaps where there's little cutouts on the bottom burr, and I'm just going to mark those two, drill the holes and screw that in place. Now let me talk to you about screws. These little screws, these particular ones, 2.5mm wide, I really recommend with small screws. They must not be treated like bigger screws because they are completely different. They're small. Some people say they're weak. They're not weak, they're just very small, and small things have to be dealt with in a slightly more delicate fashion. So if this is 2.5mm across there, the center core of the screw is likely to be around about 2mm. So let's say, for example, you drill a 1mm pilot hole thinking that's big enough. What you're trying to do then is force a 2mm shaft into a 1mm hole. It won't fit and you will break the screw. That is not the fault of the screw, that is the fault of the person fitting it. So as I say, normally we recommend 0.5mm smaller than the outer diameter of the screw, and these long ones for the bottom plate are 2.5mm. So I'm going to drill a 2mm pilot hole for that, and hopefully they will go in without any problem whatsoever. I have to confess, I'm finding this quite a challenge to film. It's much easier on the lathe. Right, I've drilled, hopefully you might be able to see in there, 2mm pilot hole. What I'm going to do is just take one of the screws and I'm just going to test fit it before I put anything in. You probably can't see what I'm doing, but I've got to hold it. Right, now it's started. I'm going to test fit that in there. I have a PH1 Phillips Head 1 screwdriver. It's quite tight. It goes in. It's also quite close to the edge. I don't want to get it any tighter than that because now it's got to screw into the relevant parts. But that just shows you that 2.5mm screw, 2mm pilot hole, that'll hold very nicely in there. Right, let's go through assembling all the bits again. So we've got a spring retainer, we've got our outer burr, and we're going to line that up with the holes that I've just made. There we go. Then we're going to pop in the spring and the bottom burr like so. Thankfully my workbench has got a hole. I'm going to poke that through the hole there, and I'm then going to pop on the bottom plate, and I've lined everything up, which I have to say at the moment it's just been difficult. There we go. Right, let's line that up, and then I'm struggling to see the screw holes, but I know that they're in there and I know that they're going to work, so hopefully, there we go, that's one located. And it's just helped when I fit this, the fact that I've screwed that in first. Let's see if I can find the one this side. I've got shaky hands. Right, now those are in there like so, I can let go. Okay, so there we go. There's the bottom parts all done in there, and you can see hopefully that's springing up and down there. That gives you the grind adjustment. And now what we've got to do is, oh, sorry, bumblebee. Right, is do the same with the pilot holes on the top. I should have done these before I screwed that in the bottom. That's because I'm thinking about telling you stuff instead of just actually getting on and doing it. Right, I'll make some holes. I'll drill the pilot holes, again 2mm. These screws are slightly smaller, so I'm hoping 2mm is going to be okay. And then we'll look at the final assembly. So now what I'm going to do, now I've drilled those holes, is fit the top parts and the bottom part. But before I do, I actually haven't put anything on this yet, so I'm going to do some fine sandpaper all over it, get it to feel quite nice. Little bit of finish, polish it up. Lots of people ask me what I put inside mine, and the answer is I blow the dust out and I don't put anything inside at all, because trying to get a finish inside there is almost impossible. You're better off just with the bare wood. This of course is the fun part, watching that colour come out on the wood. This is just a bit of sanding sealer before I polish it. It's quite nice. As I say, everything I've done here you could do on the lathe quite easily, but I just fancied a change, so I'm just going to polish this up a bit and then we'll assemble the last bit. Okie dokie, I've done a little bit of polishing, and I haven't spent hours on it. It's just a quick polish on the 3-wheel polishing kit I've got the other side of the workshop. So now we're going to do the final assembly. So we've got the retaining plate and the outer burr which are going to go in. The one thing I haven't done, which I would advise you to do, and that is wash some of the parts if they're like these and covered in dust, and your hands as well. I'm absolutely covered in it. Right, okay, so the bottom burr's in. Then I've got to add in the shaft and the spring like so. Let's poke that through that hole there. Then we're going to pop on the retaining plate, the bottom plate, and these long springs in the holes that we've already made earlier. Hopefully I can get that to locate. Come on, where are you? I think they're going in. Right, let's find the other one. That hasn't gone in quite the right place. What are you doing? That's gone in completely wonky. Where's me hole? Come on. There you are. Right, now I've got the hole in the right place and the screw in the right place. We can screw them in. Right, there we go. Hopefully yours, as I say, won't be covered in dust, and you can see that movement up and down there. Right, now we can put in the top plate and pop in the smaller screws in the top. The size of the screws isn't really critical, to be honest, lengthwise anyway. So again, these are fractionally smaller screws, but they still have a 2mm pilot hole, and they're fine. This top plate's really just a guide for the top mechanism, and all we've got to do now is to fit the top mechanism. So we've got that top plate on. Now it's just a question of popping on the extraordinarily dusty crank handle and then popping on the adjuster knob like so, and the adjuster knob will sit and tighten up and not move when it's tightened up onto there, and then you've got your adjustment, and there's your crank top mill all done. Here we go, one extraordinarily dusty crank top mill. This is the 6-inch one. We've got an 8-inch one as well, as I mentioned before. We'll go and take a still of those. The one advantage I have to say about these kits, unlike pens and a few other kits, you can take them apart and put them together as often as you like, because I've had this on and off, I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 times. There was still nothing wrong with any of the screws, because they've been done properly. So I hope there's a couple of tips in there that are helpful. There we go. I hope that's of interest. These normally sell really quite well because you can make something different than you would find in the shops with them. So until next time, thanks very much for joining me. Good luck in your workshop with whatever you do, and of course do it safely. Until next time, bye bye for now.